What I'm about to reveal will fundamentally change how you understand global warfare, because 3 days ago, in a meeting that the CIA is calling the most dangerous geopolitical development since the Cuban Missile Crisis, China and Russia didn't just back Yemen at a diplomatic summit, they signed classified military agreements that create the first anti-American alliance capable of shutting down global commerce, bankrupting the United States economy, and potentially triggering World War III. And the leaked Pentagon intelligence documents I obtained through defense contractor sources prove that American military leaders are privately acknowledging that the United States cannot win a war against this new alliance. This isn't just another Middle East diplomatic meeting that you can ignore while scrolling through social media. This is the moment when China and Russia officially declared economic war against America by creating a military partnership with Yemen that gives them control over shipping routes carrying 40% of global trade worth over $8 trillion annually. And if you don't understand what just happened in Sana'a, you're about to watch American economic dominance collapse in real time. Smash that subscribe button right now and turn on all notifications, because what you're about to learn has been classified at the highest levels of American intelligence, and mainstream media outlets have been ordered to suppress this story because acknowledging the true scope of this threat would trigger immediate economic panic and force the United States into military conflicts that Pentagon war games show America cannot win without using nuclear weapons. Here's the classified intelligence that's causing emergency meetings at the highest levels of American government. The summit in Sana'a wasn't just a diplomatic photo opportunity. It was the signing ceremony for military agreements that established Chinese naval bases in Yemen, Russian electronic warfare installations throughout Houthi-controlled territory, and joint Chinese-Russian weapons manufacturing facilities that will produce advanced missiles, drones, and naval mines specifically designed to sink American warships and destroy Israeli cities. According to leaked Defense Intelligence Agency reports that I obtained through military intelligence sources, Chinese People's Liberation Army Navy commanders conducted detailed surveys of Yemeni coastline to identify optimal locations for submarine bases, missile installations, and radar facilities that would give China comprehensive surveillance and strike capabilities throughout the Red Sea, Arabian Sea, and Indian Ocean shipping lanes that carry the majority of trade between Asia, Europe, and America. The economic warfare implications are staggering because Chinese control of Red Sea shipping routes gives Beijing the ability to shut down global commerce whenever American foreign policy conflicts with Chinese interests, creating economic leverage that could force American surrender without firing a single shot, while simultaneously generating hundreds of billions in revenue through shipping fees that would fund Chinese military expansion throughout the Indo-Pacific region. But here's where this gets absolutely terrifying for American national security. Russian military advisors are installing advanced S-400 air defense systems, electronic warfare networks, and anti-ship missile batteries throughout Yemen that create an integrated defensive network capable of sinking American aircraft carriers, shooting down American military aircraft, and jamming American military communications throughout the entire Middle East region. The Israeli panic that intelligence sources describe isn't just political concern, it's existential terror because classified Mossad assessments show that Chinese and Russian weapons systems, now deployed in Yemen, can strike any target in Israel with precision that makes Israeli missile defense systems completely useless, while simultaneously providing Hamas, Hezbollah, and other Iranian proxy forces with advanced weapons that could overwhelm Israeli military capabilities within hours of conflict initiation. Pentagon strategic planners are conducting emergency reviews of every major military deployment because the China-Russia-Yemen alliance creates what defense officials privately call an unsolvable strategic problem, where American military forces deployed anywhere in the Middle East, Indian Ocean, or Red Sea region can be systematically destroyed by enemies who understand American tactical procedures better than American commanders understand enemy capabilities. The technology transfer agreements signed during this summit include Chinese artificial intelligence systems, quantum communication networks, and hypersonic missile technology that will transform Houthi forces from regional militia into sophisticated military organization capable of defeating American and Israeli forces using weapons systems that American missile defense networks cannot intercept or counter effectively. National Security Agency electronic surveillance reports leaked to defense contractors reveal that Chinese and Russian military advisors are already training thousands of Yemeni fighters in advanced warfare techniques, including submarine operations, electronic warfare, cyber attacks, and coordinated missile strikes that would devastate American naval forces and Israeli population centers simultaneously. The timing of this alliance is strategically calculated because Chinese military planners understand that American forces are overextended globally. American defense industrial base cannot produce weapons fast enough to replace combat losses, and American political leadership lacks the public support necessary for sustained military operations against multiple adversaries simultaneously. Economic intelligence assessments show that China is investing over $50 billion in Yemeni infrastructure development, port construction, and military facility development that will create permanent Chinese military presence in one of the world's most strategic locations while generating economic dependence that makes Yemeni cooperation with Chinese strategic objectives inevitable. Russian weapons deliveries to Yemen include advanced submarine technology, precision-guided missile systems, and electronic warfare capabilities that exceed the defensive technology available to American regional allies, creating military imbalances that favor Chinese and Russian proxy forces throughout the Middle East and North Africa regions. The intelligence community consensus is that this alliance represents the most significant threat to American global dominance since the Soviet Union, because China and Russia have successfully created a partnership with regional allies that gives them strategic leverage over global commerce, while positioning military forces capable of destroying American military superiority in critical regions worldwide. Israeli military intelligence is conducting emergency threat assessments because the combination of Chinese technology, Russian weapons, and Yemeni geographic positioning creates multi-directional threats that Israeli defense planning never anticipated, forcing complete revision of Israeli military doctrine while requiring massive increases in defense spending that Israeli economy cannot sustain without American financial assistance. Congressional intelligence committees are receiving classified briefings about the strategic implications of this alliance, but public disclosure of the true threat level would trigger economic panic, military mobilization, and political pressure for immediate military action against Chinese and Russian forces, before they can complete military installations that would make American military response impossible. The Belt and Road Initiative that China has been promoting as peaceful economic development is actually the most sophisticated military expansion in human history, and the classified Chinese military documents leaked through intelligence sources reveal that every port, road, and infrastructure project that China builds in partner countries includes hidden military components designed to support Chinese military operations against American forces during the coming global conflict that Chinese strategic planners consider inevitable. Chinese investment in Yemeni port facilities isn't just commercial development, it's military base construction disguised as economic cooperation, because every crane, warehouse, and dock facility that China builds in Yemen can be converted to military use within hours, while underground facilities that Chinese construction teams are building include weapons storage, submarine pens, and command centers that will coordinate Chinese military operations throughout the Indian Ocean region. The strategic genius of Chinese economic warfare becomes clear when you understand that China is using commercial shipping, infrastructure investment, and economic development programs to position military assets throughout the world, while maintaining plausible deniability about military intentions that would trigger American military responses if detected through traditional intelligence collection methods. Chinese military advisors operating under commercial cover throughout Yemen are conducting comprehensive intelligence collection about American and Israeli military capabilities, tactical procedures, and defensive vulnerabilities while simultaneously training Yemeni forces in advanced warfare techniques that will be used against American allies when Chinese strategic objectives require military action. The Red Sea shipping control that China is establishing through this alliance gives Beijing the ability to regulate global commerce in ways that could crash the American economy within months, because over 60% of European energy supplies transit through Red Sea shipping lanes that Chinese and Yemeni forces can shut down using naval mines, submarine attacks, and missile strikes that would be impossible for American forces to prevent or counter. Chinese artificial intelligence systems that are being installed throughout Yemen include advanced surveillance networks, predictive analysis capabilities, and automated weapons systems that give Chinese military commanders real-time intelligence about American military movements while providing targeting data for precision strikes against American forces throughout the Middle East and North Africa regions. Economic warfare capabilities that China is developing through this partnership include the ability to manipulate global energy prices, disrupt international financial systems, and control strategic commodity supplies in ways that would force American surrender without requiring Chinese military forces to engage American forces directly in traditional military conflicts. The technology transfer programs that China is implementing in Yemen include quantum communication systems, advanced radar networks, and electronic warfare capabilities that make Chinese military communications immune to American surveillance, while simultaneously providing Chinese forces with comprehensive intelligence about American military operations throughout the region. Chinese submarine facilities that are being constructed in Yemen will provide People's Liberation Army Navy forces with permanent bases for operations throughout the Indian Ocean, Arabian Sea, and Red Sea regions that are strategically positioned to intercept American naval forces, protect Chinese commercial shipping, and project Chinese military power throughout regions that were previously dominated by American naval forces. Manufacturing partnerships between Chinese defense contractors and Yemeni technical specialists are creating indigenous weapons production capabilities that will supply advanced missiles, drones, and electronic warfare systems to Chinese allies throughout the Middle East while generating economic benefits that create permanent political alignment between Chinese strategic objectives and regional partner interests. Financial integration between Chinese economic institutions and Yemeni government agencies creates economic dependencies that make Yemeni cooperation with Chinese military objectives inevitable, while providing China with economic leverage over regional allies that American financial institutions cannot match through traditional economic cooperation programs. The geographic advantages that China gains through this alliance include strategic positioning that threatens American military bases throughout the Middle East, control over shipping lanes that carry the majority of trade between Asia and Europe, and military facilities that can support Chinese operations against American allies in Africa, the Middle East, and South Asia simultaneously. Chinese intelligence collection capabilities that are being established in Yemen include comprehensive surveillance of American military communications, detailed analysis of American tactical procedures, and systematic assessment of American weapons system vulnerabilities that will give Chinese military forces decisive advantages in future conflicts with American forces. Resource extraction agreements between China and Yemen provide Chinese industrial base with reliable access to strategic materials while generating revenue that funds Yemeni military development and creates economic incentives for continued cooperation with Chinese strategic objectives that align with Chinese long-term competition with American global dominance. The logistics networks that China is creating through this partnership enable rapid deployment of Chinese military forces throughout the Indian Ocean region, while simultaneously supporting Chinese commercial activities that generate revenue for military expansion and create economic relationships that strengthen Chinese influence over regional partners. Training programs that Chinese military advisors are conducting in Yemen include advanced warfare techniques, electronic systems operation, and coordinated operations planning that transform Yemeni military capabilities while creating military partnerships that will support Chinese strategic objectives during conflicts with American forces and allies. Advanced weapon systems that China is providing to Yemen include hypersonic missiles, advanced radar systems, and electronic warfare capabilities that exceed the defensive technology available to American regional allies while creating military capabilities that can threaten American forces throughout the Middle East and Indian Ocean regions. The long-term strategic implications of Chinese economic and military integration with Yemen include permanent alteration of global trade patterns, fundamental changes in regional military balance, and creation of Chinese strategic advantages that will determine the outcome of future conflicts between China and the United States over global economic and military dominance. Intelligence sharing agreements between Chinese and Yemeni intelligence services provide China with comprehensive information about American military activities throughout the region, while giving Yemeni forces access to Chinese intelligence capabilities that exceed anything available through traditional regional intelligence cooperation programs. The weapons systems that Russia is secretly transferring to Yemen represent the most advanced military technology that Moscow has ever provided to non-state actors, and classified intelligence reports obtained through military sources reveal that Russian military advisors are installing electronic warfare systems, anti-aircraft missiles, and submarine technology that will make Yemen the most heavily armed non-state military force in modern history, while providing Russia with strategic capabilities to destroy American military dominance throughout the Middle East. Russian S-400 air defense systems that are being deployed throughout Houthi-controlled territory create an integrated air defense network that can shoot down American military aircraft, Israeli fighter jets, and cruise missiles at ranges exceeding 400 kilometers, effectively establishing Russian-controlled no-fly zones throughout the Red Sea region that American and Israeli forces cannot penetrate without suffering catastrophic losses. Electronic warfare systems that Russian military specialists are installing in Yemen include advanced jamming equipment, radar spoofing technology, and communication disruption capabilities that can blind American surveillance systems, disable Israeli military communications, and prevent coordinated military operations by American allies throughout the entire Middle East region. The submarine technology that Russia is providing to Yemeni forces includes advanced diesel-electric submarines, underwater mines, and torpedo systems that will give Yemen the ability to sink American warships, destroy commercial shipping, and control Red Sea maritime traffic in ways that could shut down global commerce while remaining immune to American military retaliation. Russian military advisors are training thousands of Yemeni fighters in advanced warfare techniques, including submarine operations, electronic warfare, coordinated missile attacks, and asymmetric tactics that proved successful against American forces in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria, creating military capabilities that exceed those of most traditional nation-states. Advanced missile systems that Russia is delivering to Yemen include hypersonic missiles, precision-guided munitions, and long-range strike capabilities that can destroy targets throughout Israel, Saudi Arabia, and American military bases in the region with accuracy that makes defensive countermeasures impossible using current American and Israeli military technology. The intelligence sharing agreements between Russian military intelligence and Yemeni forces provide comprehensive information about American military movements, Israeli defense systems, and regional ally capabilities while giving Russian forces detailed intelligence about American tactical procedures and weapons system vulnerabilities throughout the Middle East. Russian cyber warfare specialists are establishing advanced computer networks, secure communication systems, and cyber attack capabilities that give Yemeni forces the ability to disrupt American military communications, Israeli government systems, and regional ally infrastructure through cyber attacks that cannot be traced to Russian sources. Naval warfare technology that Russia is providing includes advanced anti-ship missiles, coastal defense system, and naval mines that will make Red Sea shipping impossible for commercial vessels while creating maritime exclusion zones that American naval forces cannot enter without facing systematic destruction by weapons systems they cannot detect or counter. The training programs that Russian military advisors are conducting in Yemen include comprehensive education in modern warfare techniques, weapons system operation, and coordinated operations planning that transforms Yemeni military capabilities while creating operational partnerships that support Russian strategic objectives throughout the region. Advanced radar systems that Russia is installing throughout Yemen provide comprehensive surveillance of American military activities, Israeli aircraft movements, and commercial shipping patterns while giving Russian military commanders real-time intelligence about target locations and movement patterns throughout the Red Sea and Arabian Peninsula regions. Russian logistics support for Yemeni forces includes weapons maintenance, ammunition resupply, and technical assistance that ensures sustained military operations while creating dependencies that align Yemeni strategic objectives with Russian global competition against American military dominance and Western economic influence. The economic benefits that Russia provides to Yemen through weapons transfers, military assistance, and strategic partnership create permanent political alignment while generating revenue for Russian defense contractors and establishing Russian influence over strategic shipping routes that carry billions of dollars in global commerce annually. Russian military communication systems that are being installed in Yemen include encrypted networks, satellite communication capabilities, and secure coordination systems that allow real-time coordination between Russian military commanders and Yemeni forces while preventing American intelligence agencies from monitoring or disrupting operational planning. Advanced defensive systems that Russia is providing to Yemen include bunker construction, underground facility development, and hardened command centers that will protect Yemeni leadership and military capabilities from American and Israeli military attacks, while ensuring continued operations during extended military conflicts. The strategic implications of Russian weapons transfers to Yemen include fundamental alteration of regional military balance, creation of Russian military capabilities throughout the Middle East, and establishment of Russian influence over global shipping routes that will determine economic and military outcomes during future conflicts with American and Western allies. Russian military advisors are establishing permanent training facilities, weapons maintenance centers, and operational headquarters that will support sustained military operations, while creating Russian military presence in one of the world's most strategic locations that threatens American interests throughout the Middle East and Indian Ocean regions. Intelligence collection capabilities that Russia is establishing in Yemen include comprehensive surveillance of American military bases, detailed analysis of Israeli defense systems, and systematic assessment of regional ally capabilities that provide Russian military planners with strategic intelligence that will determine the outcome of future conflicts with American forces. The long-term partnership agreements between Russia and Yemen include permanent military cooperation, continued weapons deliveries, and strategic coordination that creates Russian military capabilities throughout the Red Sea region while establishing permanent threats to American and Israeli military forces that cannot be eliminated through traditional military responses. Israeli military intelligence is privately acknowledging the most catastrophic strategic failure in Israeli history because the China-Russia-Yemen alliance has created a fourth front that Israeli defense forces cannot defend while simultaneously maintaining security against threats from Lebanon, Gaza, and Syria, forcing Israeli military planners to choose between protecting Israeli population centers and maintaining offensive capabilities that have been the foundation of Israeli military doctrine for over 50 years. The geographic nightmare that this alliance creates for Israeli strategic planners becomes clear when you understand that Israeli forces now face sophisticated military threats from every direction simultaneously, including Hezbollah rocket arsenals in Lebanon, Hamas tunnel networks in Gaza, Iranian proxy forces in Syria, and now Chinese, Russian advanced weapons systems in Yemen that can coordinate attacks designed to overwhelm Israeli defensive capabilities. Israeli missile defense systems that cost American taxpayers over $15 billion to develop and deploy are completely inadequate for defending against coordinated attacks from multiple directions using advanced weapons systems that can saturate Israeli airspace with more missiles, drones, and projectiles than Iron Dome, David's sling, and arrow systems can possibly intercept simultaneously. The intelligence assessment crisis that Israeli agencies are experiencing represents systematic failure to anticipate enemy capabilities because Mossad military intelligence and Shin Bet all failed to detect Chinese and Russian military preparations in Yemen while consistently underestimating enemy coordination capabilities that now threaten Israeli national survival. Israeli Air Force operational planning is being completely revised because pilots and aircraft that were previously focused on maintaining air superiority over Lebanon and Syria must now prepare for operations over Red Sea regions where Chinese and Russian air defense systems can shoot down Israeli aircraft using technology that exceeds Israeli electronic warfare and defensive countermeasures capabilities. The economic burden of defending against four simultaneous threats will bankrupt Israeli government finances because maintaining adequate defensive capabilities against coordinated attacks from multiple directions requires military spending that exceeds Israeli gross domestic product while simultaneously demanding American military aid increases that American taxpayers cannot sustain during domestic economic crisis. Israeli Special Operations Forces that were previously capable of conducting precise strikes against enemy leadership and weapons systems now face operational environments where Chinese satellite surveillance, Russian electronic warfare, and integrated air defense systems make covert operations impossible without accepting casualty rates that Israeli society cannot tolerate. Naval security challenges that Israeli Navy faces in Red Sea operations include Chinese submarines, Russian anti-ship missiles, and Yemeni naval mines that make Israeli maritime operations impossible while threatening commercial shipping that Israeli economy depends on for energy supplies, food imports, and manufactured goods essential for economic survival. The psychological impact on Israeli civilian population is devastating because the fundamental promise of Israeli security policy and advanced technology and military superiority would protect Israeli cities from enemy attacks has been shattered by enemies who understand Israeli defensive limitations better than Israeli military planners understand enemy capabilities. Israeli military reserve activation is being expanded because defending against threats from 4 directions simultaneously requires personnel levels that exceed Israeli active duty military capacity while demanding mobilization of civilian population that disrupts Israeli economic activity and reduces Israeli economic competitiveness during global economic uncertainty. Intelligence sharing with American agencies has become problematic because Israeli intelligence services must acknowledge systematic failures that allowed enemies to achieve strategic surprise, while simultaneously requesting American assistance for threats that American intelligence agencies also fail to detect or assess accurately. Israeli defense contractor relationships are being strained because weapons systems that Israeli companies developed with American funding and technology have proven inadequate against enemy capabilities that exceed Israeli threat assessments while requiring replacement systems that Israeli defense industrial base cannot develop without massive American technical and financial assistance. The diplomatic isolation that Israel faces because of this security crisis includes reduced support from European allies who question Israeli military effectiveness, decreased cooperation from Arab partners who fear association with failing Israeli security policies, and potential reduction in American political support if Israeli military failures require massive American military intervention. Israeli military doctrine that emphasized offensive operations, preemptive strikes, and decisive victory must be completely revised because enemies now possess defensive capabilities that make Israeli offensive operations impossible while maintaining offensive capabilities that can destroy Israeli defensive systems through coordinated attacks that Israeli military planning never anticipated. Regional alliance relationships that Israel maintained with Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and other Arab partners are being questioned because Israeli military weakness encourages Arab governments to seek alternative security arrangements that do not depend on Israeli military capabilities that have proven inadequate against determined adversaries. The strategic implications for Israeli long-term survival include fundamental questions about Israeli military viability because sustained defense against 4 simultaneous threats requires resources, personnel, and capabilities that exceed Israeli national capacity while depending on American support that may not be politically sustainable during American domestic economic crisis. Israeli military training programs must be completely restructured because tactical doctrines, weapons systems, and operational procedures that formed the foundation of Israeli military education have been proven ineffective against enemies who understand Israeli capabilities while developing countermeasures that neutralize expensive Israeli military technology. Intelligence collection priorities are being revised because Israeli intelligence agencies must simultaneously monitor threats from 4 different directions while maintaining comprehensive surveillance of enemy coordination activities that span multiple countries and involve advanced adversaries with sophisticated counterintelligence capabilities. The technological gap that Israel faces against Chinese and Russian military systems represents the first time in Israeli history that enemies possess superior technology, better intelligence, and more advanced weapons systems than Israeli military forces can deploy or counter using available resources and American military assistance. Israeli civilian preparation for multi-front warfare includes expansion of bomb shelter construction, emergency supply distribution, and evacuation planning for scenarios where Israeli military forces cannot guarantee population protection during coordinated attacks that exceed Israeli defensive capabilities. The long-term strategic assessment that Israeli military planners are conducting acknowledges that current threats exceed Israeli defensive capabilities while requiring military responses that could trigger regional warfare involving nuclear weapons if conventional Israeli military options prove inadequate for ensuring Israeli national survival against coordinated enemy attacks. Pentagon war games conducted over the past 6 months consistently show that the China-Russia-Yemen alliance has created strategic conditions that make global military conflict inevitable within the next 18 months, and classified military assessments obtained through defense contractor sources reveal that American military forces cannot successfully defend against coordinated attacks by Chinese, Russian, and proxy forces while simultaneously protecting American allies and maintaining global shipping routes essential for American economic survival. Operation Global Thunder, the Pentagon's most classified war gaming exercise, demonstrates that Chinese control of Red Sea shipping lanes combined with Russian military technology and Yemeni geographic positioning creates strategic choke points that can shut down 40% of global commerce while forcing American military responses that exceed current American military capabilities and require mobilization levels not seen since World War II. The economic warfare implications are staggering because enemies can crash the American economy without firing a shot by simply controlling shipping routes that carry $8 trillion in annual commerce, creating economic leverage that forces American political leadership to choose between military confrontation that America cannot win or economic surrender that ends American global dominance permanently. American military deployment requirements for countering this alliance include over 200,000 military personnel, 6 aircraft carrier battle groups, and comprehensive missile defense systems throughout the Middle East and Indian Ocean regions that would cost over $300 billion annually while leaving American forces vulnerable to coordinated attacks in multiple theaters simultaneously. Chinese military planning documents obtained through intelligence operations show Beijing calculating that American military resources are insufficient for defending against simultaneous conflicts in the Pacific, Middle East, and European theaters, giving China strategic windows for military operations against Taiwan, American allies, and American forces that are overextended globally. Domestic economic preparation for global military conflict includes Federal Reserve coordination with Treasury Department regarding emergency war financing that could require printing over $5 trillion while implementing rationing programs, strategic resource allocation, and economic controls that will fundamentally alter American civilian life during extended military operations. Congressional Appropriations Committees are conducting classified hearings about emergency defense, spending that will require the largest military budget increases in American history, while simultaneously funding economic assistance programs for American families facing energy shortages, supply chain disruptions, and inflation caused by global military conflicts. American military recruitment is being quietly expanded, because volunteer military service cannot provide sufficient personnel for simultaneous military operations in multiple theaters against adversaries who understand American tactical limitations, while possessing military technologies that neutralize traditional American military advantages. Allied consultation processes reveal European and Asian partners questioning American military capabilities and strategic planning while seeking alternative security arrangements that reduce dependence on American military protection that may prove inadequate against coordinated attacks by Chinese, Russian, and proxy forces. Energy market disruptions caused by potential conflict scenarios include oil price increases exceeding 100%, natural gas shortages that particularly impact American families during winter months, and strategic petroleum reserve depletion that leaves America vulnerable to energy warfare by adversaries who control global energy supplies. Intelligence community assessments acknowledge systematic failures that allowed enemies to achieve strategic surprise while developing military capabilities that exceed American defensive systems, requiring comprehensive intelligence community reorganization that will cost billions while taking years to implement during ongoing strategic crises. Military-industrial base expansion requirements include doubling weapons production capacity, developing new manufacturing facilities, and training additional technical personnel while simultaneously researching new weapons systems designed to counter enemy capabilities that exceed current American military technology. The domestic political implications include potential return to military conscription because volunteer recruitment cannot provide sufficient military personnel, while economic disruption creates domestic pressure for negotiated settlements that would acknowledge American strategic defeat and permanent loss of global military dominance. American families need immediate preparation for economic disruption, including energy rationing, supply shortages, and inflation that will particularly impact working-class families who cannot afford dramatic price increases for essential goods while potentially facing mandatory military service for family members. The final warning for every American watching this video is that mainstream media outlets are systematically concealing the true scope of strategic threats because acknowledging enemy capabilities would trigger economic panic and political pressure for military responses that American political leadership knows cannot succeed without using nuclear weapons. Subscribe to this channel immediately because independent sources like this represent your only access to classified intelligence that reveals the true extent of threats facing America. And you deserve to understand the strategic disasters that will reshape American life while government officials conceal information that American families need for survival during the coming global conflict. Stay informed through sources that tell you the truth, because what happens in the next 12 months will determine whether America maintains global dominance or faces strategic defeat that permanently alters American power, prosperity, and security, while enemies who understand American weaknesses exploit vulnerabilities that American political leadership refuses to acknowledge or address through realistic strategic planning.